Hello! Welcome to the Chirp YouTube channel. My name is Christy, and I am your friendly online speech-language pathologist and specialist in children's communication development, including behavior, because as you know, behavior is a type of communication. This is video number 9 in our series on how to include kids who are neurodivergent. Neurodivergent meaning their brains have not developed in exactly the same way as every typically developing child's brain has. They have some quirks that we can support so that we can welcome these kids and their families into whatever environment it is that we have created, that we want to be welcoming. This might be a swim class, this might be gymnastics, this might be a classroom, an inclusion classroom where we want all kids to have as much support as possible. Or this might be a church or a synagogue, something like that, where we've got all sorts of kids, but some of our kids are going to need a little different kind of teaching and support. In this video, my tip is to teach all children that everyone has things we are working on and that those things are different from person to person because every person is just a little bit different. This is a very difficult thing to do, especially if you have other educational goals that you're working on. It might not feel like you have the opportunity to have some great lesson on diversity. However, it's very important for kids to realize that not every kid is going to be exactly the same. One example of this is this is years ago now, I had a little boy who was in my program because of violence. At 2 years old, he was strangling other kids in his nobody died, but he was, shaking other kids. He played out violence that he had seen elsewhere and needed to be better supervised. And my program had one-to-one support for the kids who were in my class, so we could make sure that he wasn't going to harm anyone. But he had very good communication skills. And he did not appreciate the other kids in the classroom who did not have good communication skills. And he did not appreciate anyone who looked a little bit less like he thought people should look. He didn't really want anyone in our classroom who was not thin. He really preferred to be paired with an adult support person who was pretty. And he didn't want to sit next to or talk to any of the kids in our classroom who had any sort of different facial structure, like any sort of syndromes, or kids who would have emotional outbursts. And I can understand the emotional outburst part because sometimes those kids might be unpredictable, and that's difficult for all of us. In this case, he was very, very judgmental all the time. And this was something that I purposefully worked on in small chunks regularly. And the way that I did this was he would make a comment and I would say, well, do you remember that all of us are working on something different? And let's say Rebecca is working on not crying when she doesn't get her way. And you are here because you're working on being kind to other people. And this is one way that you can be kind, is that you can be kind to Rebecca even though she doesn't act the way you think that she should. We worked on it in very short bursts because he also had his faults. And he needed to be reminded of that sometimes, not in a mean way, but just in a practical way. You're working on X. Rebecca is working on Y. Neither goal is worse than the other one. They are both necessary skills to have for a successful life. And we're here to help you with that. I am also working on things. And I shared with him some of the things that I am working on. I get really irritated when kids are obstinate and defiant. That really pushes my buttons. Also, if children spit on me, which happens sometimes, for some reason, that really gets me. I don't care so much about the biting or the hitting or the kicking. I really don't like it when kids spit on me. And so I shared, those are some things that really bug me. It makes it hard for me to really love a child if they're spitting on me or if they look at me and go, no. And I'm working on that because it's my job to love people and to work with them no matter what I get in return. And so that's something that I'm working on. And so we were able to share how hard it was for us sometimes to treat other people with respect. And that was something that he definitely needed to work on. In a typical classroom, where I am now, I'm in a typical classroom, but managing a group of children who are not developing typically. So they are very different. Their behaviors are different. Their communication styles are different. And their abilities are different from the kids surrounding them and the other kids in our group. Sometimes we do have a special group that is kind of stocked full of kids who need more support so that we can stock that group also with more adults. But there are kids in the group who do not need more support. They're just there because we have space in our group. And so, yay, because we like that. We like that interaction. But when I see one of my children flapping his hands or making a noise like this, and then clapping his hands really loud, and the other kids are looking, I can use that as an opportunity. Oh, do you know, sometimes if the room's a little bit loud, Jack feels like he needs to cover that up with some of his own noise. Sometimes that's maybe why he's doing that. Or he doesn't talk yet, so we use this book where it has pictures of things that he can ask for if he needs them, like a big squeeze. Sometimes he makes that noise because sometimes he gets upset because he needs a big squeeze. And so we're teaching him to be able to ask for that when he needs it. We can use very pragmatic, very calm and non-judgmental language and non-defensive language to describe what is happening with these other kids. I don't really recommend talking about diagnoses with children because it doesn't matter. Diagnoses don't matter very much. There are so many thousands of different diagnoses that the name doesn't really make that much of a difference. What matters is the goals that we're working on. In fact, I did a video about that right there that you can watch if you'd like. But the basics are that the goals that the child is working on are much, much more important than the diagnosis is, except if you're in insurance and you need that specific code. For most of us, what matters is knowing Jack is working on using a picture to request what he wants. And the details of that are up to the speech-language pathologist and the family. Mostly the speech-language pathologist will write the goal and make it very specific and teach everyone else how to work on this goal. And then that's how we do it. We're working on this goal. And so we can share, well, so far, Jack isn't using his voice to communicate, so he needs another way to be able to tell us what he needs. And this is how we're teaching him. These kind of statements are not offensive, they're not hurtful, they're not scary. Sometimes if kids know that there is a diagnosis, and I'm not saying it's bad to tell kids, oh, so-and-so has an autism spectrum disorder, and that means his brain is different from yours. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But at the same time, sometimes kids get worried that they too could catch this disease or something like that. Whereas if we talk about development just as a spectrum, and some kids are a little farther ahead in some areas, some kids are not so far ahead in that particular area, but maybe they're farther ahead in a different area, this kind of is a little bit less threatening and a little less divisive. It doesn't say there's those kids over there with diagnoses and then these kids over here who don't have any diagnoses. It says everyone is developing along this route. Some of us have not developed as far in a particular area, but we're still in progress. And really, that's the truth of humanity. We are all still in progress, and there's always progress to be made. So, think about, as you're going through your day, as you are working with kids or with your one child, think about ways that you can teach other people. Even if you have a child who has some delays or disorders, and you are at the playground, maybe other kids will ask you questions. Why is he in a wheelchair? Why doesn't she talk? You can say she's still working on that. And right now, she uses some gestures to tell us what she wants. If she wants to go up, she points like this. But she also has some trouble climbing so far. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to help her climb up when she wants to go up. Kids are curious, and the less weird we make it, usually the less weird the kids will make it too. And that makes for a good experience for all the kids. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate you, and I hope to see you back next time, because we will have one last video in this series about including kids who are neurodivergent. And then we will be moving on to a new series, which will be equally fun. I hope you have a great day. Bye.